Well, listen, if you don't have anything to say, you blab. You just go on and on and on and on and on.
Voters do not agree with these despicable women on The View. They are wildly out of touch with the vast majority of Americans, and frankly, they should seek immediate.
Here's the deal. When you got nothing meaningful to say, you just ramble. That's exactly what happens every day on The View. A non-stop stream of smug commentary, shallow zingers, and cheap applause. The women on that panel pretend they speak for America, but voters long ago stopped buying what they're selling. They're disconnected, living in a bubble, parroting each other's opinions like it's gospel truth. And at the top of that echo chamber sits Whoopi Goldberg, queen of daytime drama, ruler of the table, master of cutting off guests and bulldozing any view that challenges her own. For years, Whoopi sat there like royalty, waving away opposing arguments as if they were beneath her. But recently, in a moment no one saw coming, her tight grip on daytime TV slipped, and the person responsible was Karoline Leavitt. The whole showdown started like any other episode. Smug laughs, eye rolls, and the usual synchronized nodding to whatever left-leaning talking point was on the menu that day. Karoline, young and composed, sat across from the panel. Whoopi leaned back in her chair, exuding that trademark self-assured arrogance. They brought up Karoline's previous role in the Trump administration and cracked a few shallow jokes. She's probably here because, according to Trump, she's a 10. Someone snarked. The audience giggled. Whoopi smirked. Same script, same show. Then the conversation shifted to wokeness, a word The View treats like sacred scripture, defending it at every turn as if the entire show's existence depends on it. Maybe it does. Whoopi, feeling untouchable, took the first swing. She pointed at Karoline, smirk in place, and fired her shot. Asterisk, without wokeness, you wouldn't even have this job. Asterisk bam. The mood changed instantly. You could almost hear the oxygen leave the room. Even Joy Behar, who's made a career out of cheap conservative put-downs, squirmed in her chair. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or flinch. Karoline sat still, eyes steady, letting Whoopi's smug grin hang in the air like stale perfume. When Karoline started to respond, Whoopi jumped to cut her off. Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you continue to attack my colleagues. We're here to talk about Joe Biden, about Trump, who you work for, not this. Karoline stayed calm. Asterisk, I'm stating facts that your colleagues have publicly said themselves. Asterisk, the tension doubled. Whoopi forced a fake smile, pivoted back to the panel, and dismissed Karoline with an abrupt, Karoline, thank you for your time. Polite applause rippled through the studio, more out of habit than conviction. Whoopi leaned in, ready to deliver her typical post-snub jab. You'd think after years hosting one of the most watched shows on daytime TV, she'd come up with fresh lines. But no, same tired script. In a follow-up, Whoopi mocked Karoline's claim that the on-air shutdown show conservatives wouldn't be treated fairly in upcoming debates. Is everything rigged? Rigged, rigged, rigged. She scoffed, rolling her eyes dramatically. The audience chuckled on cue, but the vibe was off. You could sense it. Something felt different. This wasn't your average conservative guest folding under pressure. Karoline didn't flinch. She didn't stammer out a half-baked comeback or fumble her talking points. She did something Whoopi did not expect. She smiled. Not a cocky grin, not a forced laugh, but a calm, knowing smile. The kind that said, asterisk, you just made a huge mistake. Asterisk, and then she did what few ever do when they're outnumbered on The View. She dropped hard facts, cold, undeniable numbers that no sarcastic jab could erase. She laid out line by line how American taxpayers were footing the bill for absurd woke initiatives overseas. Gender studies in Guatemala. Children's TV adaptations of Sesame Street designed to push American social politics globally. Bizarre foreign equity. Programs that didn't help everyday Americans at all. Whoopi blinked. The smirk faded. The audience sat quieter than they had all day. Karoline connected the dots with surgical precision. Wokeness wasn't just a social cause, she explained, but a political weapon now embedded in every corner of government spending. It wasn't about equality anymore. It was about control. Punish the dissenters, reward the loyalists, and shame everyone else into silence. Whoopi tried to cut in, but Karoline pressed on. She described how this ideology had infected everything. Public schools, universities, Hollywood, big tech, and yes, the same legacy media that had once declared themselves guardians of truth, but now function more like gatekeepers of groupthink. She wasn't yelling. She didn't rant. She didn't insult. She calmly made her case, bullet point by bullet point, until even the most diehard audience members shifted uncomfortably. The applause sign flickered on and off, but the claps were half-hearted. Some were starting to realize Whoopi's smug dominance had hit a wall. Karoline wrapped it up with the same steady tone. Asterisk, it's not radical to want your country to come first. It's not radical to protect your borders, strengthen your economy, and put your people ahead of foreign interests. It's common sense. Asterisk, and that was it. The audience didn't know whether to clap or stay quiet. Some did both. Whoopi stared, fumbling for a clever retort, but there was none. Karoline had done what countless guests before her failed to do. She exposed the panel's hypocrisy, called out their lazy insults, and did it without raising her voice or stooping to petty name-calling. It was a moment that millions would replay online, a rare crack in Whoopi's carefully maintained armor. And for once, the people watching at home weren't just nodding along with the same old routine. They were asking real questions. Who really benefits from this endless woke cycle? Who actually pays the price? And why is The View so eager to silence anyone who dares to answer honestly? One thing was clear. Karoline Leavitt didn't just survive The View, she flipped the script. And in doing so, she reminded a lot of Americans that sometimes all it takes to shatter the smug, safe bubble of daytime TV is a smile, some truth, and the guts to stand firm when the clapping stopped Americans are being conditioned to hate their own country, to hate each other based on race, gender, or whatever new label the outrage machine invents next. And the ringmasters of that circus are the same people who claim to preach tolerance. For years, Whoopi Goldberg made a living dominating conversations, shutting down conservative voices, and steamrolling through any topic that threatened her safe bubble on The View. But in one jaw-dropping moment, her iron grip slipped, and the entire audience saw it. It started the same way it always does. Whoopi perched like royalty at the head of the table, the smug panel nodding along, ready to mock whatever conservative dared to sit in that hot seat. Karoline Leavitt stepped into that lion's den with a calm confidence that caught them off guard. She didn't come to grovel or fumble through talking points. She came ready. Whoopi cracked the same tired joke. Without wokeness, you wouldn't even have this job. She wore that trademark smirk. Sure, she'd landed a blow. The audience tensed. Joy Behar shifted uncomfortably. It wasn't the mic drop Whoopi thought it was. When Karoline responded, Whoopi tried to bulldoze her like she always does. Ma'am, I'm going to stop this interview if you attack my colleagues. But Karoline didn't back down. Calmly, she reminded Whoopi that she was just stating facts. Facts the panel had admitted. Themselves. The tension was immediate. Whoopi's usual fallback, the dismissive laugh and the next softball question, failed her. For the first time in a long time, Whoopi looked like she didn't know what to say. She shifted in her chair, hands flailing for something to anchor her confidence. She opened her mouth, closed it, then opened it again. Nothing. The audience, usually so quick to clap on cue, sat frozen. The loyal studio fans didn't know whether to clap, laugh, or pretend they hadn't just watched Whoopi corner herself. Even the camera crew hesitated. Should they zoom in on her stunned face, or cut to commercial and pray viewers wouldn't notice? And here's the real question Karoline exposed. If wokeness is about diversity and inclusion, why is it that conservative women are the first to be attacked? Why does a woman's empowerment vanish the second she steps out of line with their ideology? In that moment, Whoopi had no comeback, no sharp jab, no tired quip to shut Karoline down. The silence was brutal. Desperate to break the tension, Joy Behar jumped in with a nervous joke. But the damage was done. Whoopi, the woman who made a career out of controlling the conversation, had completely unraveled on live TV. If you don't have anything real to say, you ramble. You fill the air with smug noise. That's exactly what Whoopi did, or tried to do. But when you're faced with cold, undeniable facts, cheap sarcasm crumbles fast. Watching her try to wriggle free was awkward and revealing. It made people wonder, how does someone this shallow still hold on to such a powerful platform? Maybe it's habit. Maybe it's because daytime TV has always leaned on safe, predictable voices that tell the audience what they want to hear. But at this point, you'd think ABC would replace Whoopi with someone who could actually handle a debate. The truth is, people are catching on. They know the routine. They know the scripted moral superiority. They know the tolerant act falls apart the second a real challenge appears. And this time, Whoopi wasn't prepared. She kept insisting she was ready, that she knew exactly how to handle these people. But she wasn't. The internet exploded. Within minutes, Whoopi's stunned face was plastered everywhere. Memes, reaction clips, endless commentary replayed on loop. And here's where it gets even wilder. This wasn't Whoopi's first disaster. Her mouth has dragged ABC through scandal after scandal, turning The View into a lawsuit magnet. From tone-deaf Holocaust remarks to bizarre defenses of shady public figures, Whoopi's reckless commentary has cost her bosses millions. And lately, the lawsuits keep piling up. First, it was Carrie Underwood, then Elon Musk, and now Karoline Leavitt. One defamation suit after another, all sparked by Whoopi's habit of opening her mouth without thinking about the consequences. Each lawsuit forced ABC's lawyers to do backflips trying to spin her reckless comments as protected opinion. But you can only do that so many times before the bill comes due. Carrie Underwood's case was especially brutal. After Carrie sang at Trump's second swearing-in, Whoopi and her co-hosts didn't just criticize the performance. They shredded her character. They mocked her, claimed she'd ruin her career, and even implied she'd thrown her lot in with hate groups. They expected Carrie to roll over, maybe post a safe statement, then vanish. But Carrie didn't just fight back. She hit them with a billion-dollar defamation lawsuit that exposed emails and footage the public was never supposed to see. When the case went to court, ABC scrambled to settle quietly. But the damage was done. Viewers saw the receipts. They realized these tolerant hosts weren't just opinionated. They were reckless, mean-spirited, and far more obsessed with silence and dissent than were having any real conversation. And now it's happening again. Karoline Leavitt didn't storm off the set or cower under Whoopi's glare. She sat there, calm and unshakable, with that slight smile that said, "Asterisk, go ahead. Keep underestimating me." Asterisk, she flipped Whoopi's trademark smirk right back at her, and the audience knew it. They knew they'd just seen something rare. Whoopi Goldberg exposed, cornered, and out of answers. One moment of silence can reveal more than hours of smug monologue ever could. And this time, Whoopi Goldberg's silence was deafening, you know. That's exactly what it is. According to The View's logic, you can't possibly be attractive and smart at the same time. At least not if you're a conservative woman. Maybe I'll give Joy Behar the benefit of the doubt and say she didn't watch that briefing. Because if she had actually paid attention to Karoline Leavitt yesterday, how she handled tough questions on multiple topics, no big binder, no teleprompter, she might have formed a very different opinion of a young woman sitting across from her smug panel. It's genuinely refreshing to watch someone break free from The View's tired script. Watching Karoline calmly stand her ground, armed with facts, felt like a win, especially when the usual gatekeepers began to unravel live on air. You have to hope Joy did zero research on Karoline before tossing out cheap shots. Because if she did, the condescension was even worse than it looked. Karoline's resume speaks for itself. She graduated from St. Anselm College, worked for Congress in New Hampshire, ran for Congress herself at just 25, and put up an impressive fight. Sure, she lost by 8 or 9 points. Big deal. It was still a respectable campaign for someone her age. Then she became press secretary for the Trump campaign, stepping in front of cameras every single day, while heavily pregnant and a new mom. And now, at just 27 years old, she's the youngest White House press secretary ever. I've watched every press secretary since Marlin Fitzwater. Yeah, I'm that old. And what Karoline did in her first briefing was genuinely impressive. She didn't flinch. She didn't fold. She owned the moment. Meanwhile, Whoopi Goldberg's accomplishments lately. Harder to define, to put it mildly. Sure, she once had a strong career in acting. No one could take Ghost or The Color Purple away from her, but these days, she's known less for substance and more for stirring up controversy. Her place at The View feels more like tenure than value at this point. And when she does open her mouth, the blowback never seems far behind. Leaks have shown us that ABC didn't just accidentally stumble into controversies, it orchestrated them. Take the Carrie Underwood fiasco. When Carrie performed at Trump's second swearing-in, Whoopi and her co-host didn't stop at a bad review. They went all in. Savage mockery, saying she destroyed her career, painting her as some hate-aligned country puppet. It wasn't just catty TV banner. It was a full-on hit piece, a calculated move to boost ratings by dragging a popular star through the mud. But Carrie didn't roll over and take it. She filed a billion-dollar defamation lawsuit, and when the case reached court, the truth came out. ABC's own leaked emails exposed how the entire attack was planned to spike controversy, drive headlines, and keep The View trending for days. When that bombshell dropped, ABC scrambled to settle behind closed doors. Nobody knows the exact payout, but the message was clear. These reckless hot takes were now real liabilities. Just when the dust began to settle, Elon Musk dropped his hammer. For months, Whoopi and her panel painted Musk as a dangerous figure, spinning wild stories about Twitter's policies under his ownership. Musk wasn't having it. He sued The View for defamation, and suddenly ABC was back in crisis mode. Loyal advertisers, tired of the constant PR fires, started to back away. Big sponsors began asking if the show was really worth the risk anymore. The lawsuits piled up. The cracks in Whoopi's once unshakable fiefdom widened. And then came Karoline Leavitt. Unlike the celebrities or CEOs Whoopi mocked from a safe distance, Karoline walked right into Whoopi's domain, faced her down, and turned the entire table upside down. Karoline's calm, confident dismantling of Whoopi's cheap shots was a final push that exposed the truth for everyone watching. Whoopi Goldberg had become a liability, loud, sloppy, stuck in the past. Her go-to trick of bulldozing conservative guests didn't work on Karoline, who just kept returning fire with calm facts and a steady smile. Whoopi tried to recover. She launched into her usual sermon, telling Karoline and the audience that without wokeness, none of this would be possible. She claimed wokeness was why women even had a seat at the table. She tried to spin history to paint herself as a champion of opportunity, but the argument fell flat. She was talking in circles while Karoline, by simply existing in that chair, young, sharp, unapologetically conservative, proved Whoopi's point dead wrong. The audience felt it. The cameras caught it. The social media clips sealed it. By the time Whoopi stumbled over her final awkward defense, it was obvious the showdown had cracked her armor wide open. And then came the final blow. After years of running The View like her own personal fiefdom, shutting down any real opposition, Whoopi Goldberg's time was up. ABC tried to spin it as an extended break for Whoopi, but everyone knew what it really was. They pushed her out to stop the bleeding, the defamation lawsuits, the advertisers jumping ship, the viral clips that made Whoopi look out of touch, smug, and embarrassingly unprepared for someone like Karoline. Now The View sits at a crossroads. Will ABC just find another Whoopi, another smug gatekeeper to protect the same stale narrative? Or will they finally shake things up, bring in real voices who can hold an honest debate without shouting the other side down? Is this the beginning of the end for a show that used to dominate daytime TV, but now looks more like a relic than a powerhouse? Time will tell. For now, one thing's clear. Whoopi's days of controlling the conversation are over, and all it took was one smart, steady, fearless young woman to remind the world what happens when you fight empty noise with facts and calm conviction. What do you think? Is this the shake-up daytime TV needed, or just the beginning of the end? Drop your thoughts below.